Presented by Dano's Seasoning. Yum yum, get you some.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of the Sun Belt Syndicate. From the first kick to the last pitch. I mean, I'm not really good at saying that every time, TJ. I feel like
always keep thinking you're going to say last kick, and I'm like, don't say last kick because you mean last pitch.
First kick to the last kick. Oh, well, someday I'll probably do it. But right. I need to try and use the tagline that I liked and had thought of, similar to what XM does. That's why I thought of it. But anyway, before we get going too far, Dubby Energy Fanplex graphics, check out right here for your gifts for your Trojan and Mountaineer fans, for you people out there that are looking for something that's different and something that they could really be excited about. These little posters are pretty cool, and you can get them bigger size too. I don't know if they make them quite as big as that frame there, but definitely some cool options there on the Fanplex graphics website. TSN Off Road, they're still pushing their Molly panels as Christmas gets closer again. Don't have to have an off-road vehicle to have one of those attached to your vehicle. And Dano's Seasoning, of course, put a little in a soup tonight, TJ. You a soup guy?
What kind of soup? I love soup.
It was like a veggie soup, I think. Okay. Like brothy or
like
a tomato-based soup.
Okay. Not mad at it. Not mad at it. So like a beef stew almost without the beef.
Yes. Yeah, I would definitely prefer it with meat, but kind of to make it easy, I think my wife just, sometimes she will make that in it. Yeah.
Soup with vegetables, and I mean, I'm not going to be mad about that.
No, it's healthy.
Cheese.
Yeah, until I add all the sodium in for my flavoring, then it's probably not healthy. But.
Well, listen, you got to have some flavor, right? I mean, I'm not going to eat a soup that's bland. But yeah, nope. I make all kinds of soup, ham and potato soup, chicken noodle soup, all from scratch from home, make my own broths. Like I'm a soup guy.
Nice. I knew you were a grill guy, but I don't know if we had the conversation about soup just yet. So.
Yeah. And to do it in the crock pot is the easiest way to make it happen.
That's true. My wife does make a lot of soups in the crock pot. That's a good point.
Yeah, it's so easy.
I'm not sure how she did this one today. She definitely did this one on the stove, but I don't know where it came from, if she kind of put it all together or it was out of some kind of pre-made can, to be honest with you. But
anyway, as long as you're full.
Yeah, exactly. And if you want to spice it up, use some Danos. So, we want to get to Mark's comment. Probably wants to know Huff to USM. I'm guessing he's maybe asking us our thoughts on that. So we'll get to some of that stuff, and we'll go ahead and get to this comment now. The worst kept secret, as Marv and I had discussed previously this week. I guess that was a Sunday night show, and
right. I did see you guys on there.
Yeah, it was. We all knew it was coming. It was just when it was going to be made official, and if any further information was coming out. Apparently, there's some backdoor stuff. It just sounds like he didn't get along necessarily or have a great time with the authority figures or the athletic department or the school. Obviously, last year we saw the fans get upset about how the season ended. So, I mean, I don't feel like he felt like he wanted to stay, I guess, really.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, it was the rumblings were there, right? Like we heard a million times over, right? Like he's not happy. The fans aren't happy with him, especially the students for whatever reason. They were very unhappy. It was, the writing was on the wall. I don't necessarily say that, know that I blame him for leaving. I mean, why wouldn't you go to I don't want to say it's a better situation, but certainly different, and you get to do what you love to do. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, it was time. Like I said, the writing was sort of on the wall. It was time for him to make a change, and I'm not mad about it.
No, I'm not mad about it. Like you said, it's probably...
It is weird that it's in conference, though.
Yeah, but you know what you said, and you're right. I don't know if it's a better situation, but that situation can be helped out immensely if his players follow him there from a championship squad. That's kind of that interesting piece.
Fair
many
point.
guys
Fair point.
come with him? Braylon Braxton has already entered the transfer portal.
Right.
I mean, the odds-on favorite has to be Huff to get him down at USM, right? We've talked about it, mentioned it with Marv too. They had a terrible and horrific quarterback situation there. The Rodemaker kid has already entered the transfer portal too, I believe. So, I mean, they're not in a good situation, but they've got a better head coach coming in and possibly some better players to immediately boost up that roster. There's a lot of excitement down there. We know USM Twitter is always on high alert. They're going to be talking their trash if they come storming back. We also seen stuff. Marvin and I talked about this. Do you remember where Arizona State was picked in the Pac-12 before this season started?
Yeah, I think they were picked to finish like 10th or 9th or 10th or something like that.
Dead last. They were last. I don't know. I forget how many teams are in the Pac-12, but dead last is where they were predicted to finish, and they won the conference. I'm not saying that's going to happen with Southern Miss just because he did it this past year, Mark. Sure. But if he brings enough guys, they ain't going winless in conference again. I can tell you that, right? So
yeah, that's for sure.
I see a marked improvement on the Southern Miss side of things for sure. And Mark's also saying Walker Howard to ULL or Louisiana, as they prefer to be called, the Cajuns over there. So this kid is from that neck of the woods. I forget exactly how far away he really is.
Yeah, it's hometown move.
Yeah. So he started off, and maybe you know this too, he started off at Florida, didn't really play, transferred to Ole Miss, and then now is kind of coming home to Louisiana. And it's at a good time, right? Because they're going to be depleted with Woolridge and Fields leaving. And I believe they're both seniors. I know Fields is a senior for sure.
Fields is definitely a senior. I don't know if Woolridge is or not. I can look.
Yeah, why don't you look that up? Because I know that one of them is. I think both of them are. But that's a good situation for him to possibly come into. I will tell you, stay on the lookout for Dwayne Lynchfield, I think it is. His nickname is Lunch, and I've mentioned him before on this. I asked Coach Dez before the season started, Sunbelt Media Days, about what his development was like. I was actually surprised not to see him come in after Fields got injured in the championship game, but maybe Lunch is banged up a little bit. But I would expect him to be able to compete for that starting job. Definitely a dual threat quarterback, definitely brings a lot of excitement, but he now will be going up against a highly recruited player coming back home in Walker Howard. What'd you find for us, TJ?
Yeah, Ben Woolridge is actually a redshirt senior.
Okay.
And let's see, they've got a freshman quarterback, and then they've got Daniel Beal, who's a freshman quarterback at 200.
He's the one that came in the championship game.
6'2", 200 pounds, pretty good size. And then Adrian Lara, redshirt sophomore, 6 foot 235, quarterback. And Chandler Fields is 5'10", 206. He's a redshirt senior as well. So yeah, two seniors at QB.
So it sounds like maybe possibly they could both come back if they really wanted to, but I don't know. I would assume that if Howard's transferring in, he kind of knows at least one, if not both, are going to be moving on after this this past season. So we'll have to see. But yeah, definitely some excitement there for the Cajun fans going into next year. And Ben James joining, saying what's up, what's going on, Benny, and TJ. He wants to know what you're watching in the background tonight.
NBA. Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, this is college basketball, some Kentucky basketball in the background right now.
They took care of one of our Sunbelt brethren pretty easily against Georgia State. Yeah, I think they won 107 to 76 or 77, something like that.
Well, here's the thing. You scored 77. Look at this glass half full. You scored 76 against Kentucky, right?
Not only that, but
fifth-ranked team in the country.
Yeah, and Kentucky has scored over 100 points, I think 4 or 5 times already.
I was going to say 4 times this year. Yeah.
Yeah, 4 times? Okay, yeah. And Zach was pointing out in the basketball show on Monday night, he said, it looks bad on paper, but he said if you watch the game, they really didn't pull away comfortably until later on. So,
and Georgia Southern's got some talent.
I think it was Georgia State.
I mean, Georgia State. Sorry, that's what I meant. Georgia State. My bad. I get them mixed up. But yeah, Georgia State's they've got some talent on their team. And like I said, you scored 76 or 75 points against the 5th ranked team in the country. Yeah. It's not all bad. I mean, obviously 30 points, a 30-point loss is a 30-point loss. But there's a big difference between, 50 to 89 than 70 to, 107. You know what I mean? Like that's a very big difference. So
yeah. Absolutely. Ben says he's kind of dreading the A-State versus Bowling Green game. We will not be previewing that one. So last year, TJ, we remember previewed all the bowl games in one episode. That was a lot. It was a lot to try and have ready. The transfer portal was obviously an aspect of that one. I feel like it's even bigger now, right? I think it was Monday or Tuesday. Not today, so it's already more.
Yeah.
But like I think it was 1,300 kids had already entered the transfer portal.
Yeah, it was 500 just on Monday alone. 500 kids just on Monday entered the portal.
Insane. Well, Ben, we will certainly preview the Red Wolves Bowl matchup, but that one won't be tonight. We're going to space it out. That gives us better time to look some information up, adjust when there's transfer portal news about, a star quarterback who's all of a sudden not going to play for his team in the bowl game, and pull some stats up and be ready for you guys. So without further ado, we will get to that. Which two games are we covering? There's only one this upcoming weekend. It's the same day as the Army-Navy game. Go Navy, since my dad was a former Marine. I think, TJ, you're on the opposite side of that, right?
Yep. No. My brother's in the Navy.
Navy. Okay. All right. Yep. But your dad was where? No.
All my parents are Marine and Navy, or all my family, uncles, Marine, Navy. I got one straight uncle who was Army.
Okay.
But he's my uncle by marriage, so doesn't really count. No, I'm just joking. I'm kidding.
Ben James is on Army territory saying go Army. So, yeah. You know what Army stands for, right?
I do not.
Ain't ready to be a Marine yet. That's what my dad likes to tell me because he was a Marine. So, It has to be true, right?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Well, I got respect for them all because I couldn't do it.
I thought about doing it, but didn't.
Yeah, it never even crossed my mind.
No. Well, you had bigger and better plans. You were playing one of the best FCS football programs in the country. So,
True story. Actually, the best at the time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. At the time, no doubt about it. Yeah. Now you got to put it up against North Dakota State, and I don't know. I guess that's really it. Well, South Dakota State's now coming on strong, I guess. But.
Yeah. Well, at that time, it was it Northern Illinois, Southern Illinois?
It was Northern Illinois that you guys faced in 2005 to win the first one, I think.
2005, yeah. It was Northern Illinois. Furman was really good at the top. I mean, if Furman had been in another conference, we'd be playing them in the national championship. At the time, Montana was really good. Who else was really good back then?
Well, you beat Delaware in 2007, so I'll probably list them, right?
Yeah, but Delaware, I mean, we beat them 49-20. I mean, that wasn't really.
The team on screen, JMU was good back then.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Geez, I don't know what I'm thinking. Yeah, JMU had been in another conference at that time. I guess technically they were. We met them in the playoffs. But I mean, if JMU had didn't run into us, then they would have won.
Yeah. Richmond was another one at the time.
Richmond. They actually ended up beating us my senior year. Do you know? Just a tidbit. That game, my senior year, was the best game I had ever had in my entire life. I had like 169 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns, and we lost. Best game I ever had in my career.
Is that the one? That was the loss at home, right?
Yep, that was a loss at home. Semifinals.
Yeah, I think it was.
The next game was a national championship, and Richmond ended up winning the national championship.
Yeah, that's right. Who was the running back they had? He went to the NFL, right?
Yeah. God, he played for the Cardinals. Hightower.
Yeah. God, that guy was good.
They had 2 bookend defensive ends that both went to the NFL. They were wearing our tackles out.
Yeah, they were good. They were real good.
Yeah.
I remember going up there the year before, though, when we beat them at their place in the snow game, man. That was so much fun.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. We actually after that game, had some of their fans come back to our hotel, which was, that was
nice.
that was very much different.
Oh, man.
But, yeah, we had some good times, man. I would go back and do it again.
There you go. We got Brent joining from Facebook saying, justice for Army. How do you keep our military out of the playoffs?
Newsflash, Brent, they weren't good enough. they just weren't. And respectfully, I mean that as respectfully as I possibly can say it, but I don't want to see a team in the playoffs whose best play or best pass play is a 5-yard out route. I don't want to see that.
Yeah.
I mean, they throw the ball 4 times a game. 4. That's like Georgia Southern in 2005. I don't want to see that.
Yeah. I'm okay with it if they would have competed with Notre Dame. If they'd have lost like an overtime game to Notre Dame, then I would say, they may be just as close and as a possible team as Notre Dame. Not because, like you've said, not because they played like a resume that was great. It wasn't. But we've seen now that the committee is going to lean heavily on your record first, and then they're going to go by the eye test, and then they're going to worry about everything else that could be a factor after that. So could they have stood a better chance if they competed with Notre Dame at all? Probably. At least they're in a conversation. But I don't think because of how badly they got drilled in that game, I don't think they stood any real chance.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think they, like I said, they just weren't. They didn't have a good enough schedule, like you just said, and B, they didn't beat teams by enough of a margin to warrant them getting in.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, it's. I think what they're maybe doing a little bit, they're never going to say this, is atoning for the Liberty decision last year, right? Liberty got the New Year's Six Bowl and got just demolished by Oregon, and it was all because they had an undefeated record, even though they didn't play a single power program, and they really didn't play anybody within their conference that was all that amazing either. Their best win was their conference championship against, I think it was New Mexico, who did go to Auburn and beat them. But again, Auburn wasn't great last year. They weren't very good this year either, but I don't know. We're going to see what happens there. Brent says, I'm pretty sure there's going to be some blowouts in the first round. It wouldn't surprise me, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at probably SMU getting blown out by Penn State. Penn State gave Oregon all they wanted and barely lost to Ohio State. I say barely. I mean, they pulled away in the second half. But I don't see that being a close game. I see Texas blowing out Clemson, by at least blowing out 2 touchdowns, maybe 3. I'm trying to think who's at the top of the bracket. Now, I will say Ohio State has who's Ohio State have? Tennessee. That should be a good game, and I'm actually picking Tennessee to win that game.
I think that should be probably one of the better ones of the weekend for sure. Well, yeah. It's funny. He says blowouts in the first round. We also saw one just this past week. We've already covered this, so we're not going to go over again. But I mean, how great of a matchup going in do we think Marshall and Louisiana was going to be? And then look what happened. So yeah, there's going to be games that are going to be like that because there's some of those things you just can't predict. Like the analytics tell you, oh man, this is a close margin, a close game that's going to happen, and then 30-3 happens. Whatever. We'll see this weekend. So it's just an interesting one to, reference when you are talking about the blowouts. We've seen it. What's funny is too, whenever the G5 made it the first time around, Cincinnati made people, they don't deserve it. They're going to get blown out. The first round matchups in some of those other 14 playoffs were worse between power programs than they were with Alabama beating Cincinnati.
100%.
So yeah, it's all about matchups and schemes, right?
Yep. I'm with you.
All right. Well, speaking of matchup and schemes, we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. Again, focusing on South Alabama's bowl game against Western Michigan and JMU's bowl game against Western Kentucky. We will go live again next Wednesday. At least that is the plan. But the JMU Western Kentucky game will happen kind of before and maybe right at the tail end or right at the beginning portion of when we would go live. So we're going to go ahead and preview that one as well and give us another game to talk about, and instead of just filling our time with just one this week. So Saturday is the first one. We've got 6-6 South Alabama going up against 6-6 Western Michigan. This one on ESPN, well after the Army-Navy game. It doesn't start till 9 Eastern, 8 Central Time. It is the IS4S Salute to Veterans Bowl. They have renamed this. I believe this one was the Camellia Bowl previously. But South Alabama favored by 7.5 points with a total over under of 57.5. I think we may see some points on the board in this one, TJ.
Yeah, I'm with you. I know South Alabama was hard to stop. I mean, they've shown that multiple times this year. You already know how I feel about their quarterback and what they can do offensively. I do think defensively is kind of where the rub is, so to speak. Not that they can't stop teams, but I think that they're much better on the offensive side of the football than they are defensively. We got, little Russell Wilson back here, who I've repeatedly compared him to, Wisconsin Russ. I'm picking South Alabama just because I think they have the better overall team, first of all, but certainly the better offense. And I think that 7.5 point spread is probably pretty accurate.
Yeah, I'd say accurate. I wouldn't have been surprised if they had gone more, but I understand why. This line will certainly move, by the way, right? If there's a couple more portal
100%
moves or whatever. Yeah. And so I'll go over a couple things before we get into talking more player specifics. We'll put them up on the board to kind of see that as well as we go through it. The last 5 games for South Alabama, they've gone 3-2. The last 5 games for Western Michigan, they've gone 2-3. So neither team really coming in all that hot or on any kind of undefeated streak, which is a little interesting. The high point total for South Alabama, I just like to mention these things. I think some of them are interesting. 87 points, as we know. FCS, probably one of the worst college football teams across all divisions, to be totally honest, because they were literally kind of rebuilding their program back. And the Western Michigan Broncos had a high point total of 59. Both of those games for each team were against 1AA opponents, so that's not really surprising. The low point total, USA was held to just 10 points at one point this past season. Western Michigan at one point was completely shut out. To note, that game did come against Ohio State, so take that for what it is.
That's fair.
Yeah. I have a really interesting one in this one before we get to some of the more specific players that are going to take part in this game. There were no common opponents between these two teams. However, the interesting thing is they each played a team from the other conference. So you would think that there would have somehow been some way that one of them would have played that team, right? But they didn't. South Alabama played Marshall and Western Michigan played Marshall. South Alabama did not have Marshall on the schedule this past season. And South Alabama played Ohio, and Western Michigan did not have Ohio on their schedule this year. So it's kind of interesting that they did play cross-conference games, but there's really no way to have any measuring stick between them. Here's the craziest note, though. So that's part of the equation. Here's the second part of that equation. In the game against Ohio, South Alabama lost 27-20. In the game against Marshall, Western Michigan lost 27-20.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know how anybody.
I don't know how to take that.
Yeah, it's like, what is this? That if would have been like a like or common opponent and they lost by like a similar score would have been really interesting, but they played 2 different teams, but from their conference, and they suffered the exact same fate, a loss, and by the exact same score. I don't know how else to kind of word that. It's just absolutely ridiculous in that one. But Brent Griffin says, I think Marshall players were just royally pissed. And I think that one's from the championship game comment that we had. Ben is wondering, is Lopez playing in the bowl game? All factors right now point to yes. It also appears that he will, in fact, return to South Alabama. I think he has kind of made that commitment known. So it's good news for the Jags because we talked about it, TJ. This kid could have found his way to another program if he really wanted to. But
for sure.
Okay, here it is. Cooper Tate saying, I'm glad Gio Lopez announced he is staying at South next year. I'm not sure about if he's playing the game because he has been in a boot at practice. Okay, so there is an interesting tidbit that I am just now learning. So we'll see because, again, this game isn't a week and a half away. It's this Saturday. So
yeah. It's not like your typical bowl schedule. They don't have a whole lot of time to get prepared for it. So if he's in a boot, we'll have to see how that goes. Now, boots can be precautionary. I know at one point Armani Edwards was walking around campus in a boot, and everybody got nervous. That was because he had a sprained ankle, and we didn't want him to put any weight on it. He ended up playing the next week and rushed for like 130 yards. So while still throwing for like 200 and something. So that's
why he's in the College Football Hall of Fame now.
That's part of it.
That was so cool to see that clip where he's like sitting right in front of, or actually, I guess he's behind Alex Smith. I know he was surrounded by a couple other.
Yeah, to his right was Larry Fitzgerald.
That's okay. That's who I couldn't think of who it was at the moment, but yeah, that's crazy, man. That's a hell of an accomplishment, and I'm proud that I got to see him play. I mean, I put it on the comment. I don't know if it was his post or App's football post, but literally the best I've ever seen do it live, and there's no question in my mind about that. I don't care what level of football you're talking about. He did things that just wowed you and said, how the hell did he do that? So
yeah, all at about $180.
Right. Yeah. and it's funny that we're talking about that with Gio Lopez on the screen, because he's capable of doing some of those same type of plays or similar things on the field. So just another note or two here before we move on to the players specifically for this game. Average points for South Alabama is 34.8. Obviously, that's skewed a little bit with that 87-point game they did have against one AA opponent. Their points against 25.3. So their winning margin rather comfortable if you put those two together. Interesting note for Western Michigan, they actually score less points for than they allow against themselves. So to make that make more sense, average points for of 29.4, average points against of 31.4.
That does not bode well.
Does not bode well, and it makes sense about why USA is favored by 7.5. And like I said, if Gio goes and this offense is pretty close to full form, I would favor them by 40. More than that.
Yeah, they'll score 40. If they hit peak, they'll score 40.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt there. I mean, they're right at that 35 and points per game type of look. So here's how we can break this down. I will tell you that in the transfer portal, as far as big important pieces that could be a part of this, Fluff Bothwell, the running back, the star running back, freshman running back that lit up the field this year, has officially declared for the transfer portal, as of yet not gotten on a new team. And cornerback Jordan Scruggs, who was a big-time piece in that secondary for the Jags. So those two pieces are certainly gone and will not participate in this bowl game. But as you can see, they still have a lot of weapons on the screen right now. Yeah. And I do want to mention that, you know, if Gio Lopez doesn't go, they have a guy named Bishop Davenport. And again, he's not said he's entering the transfer portal. He saw limited action, but was pretty impressive in his time on the field as well. But TJ, what is this kind of looking like? And then we'll talk about Western Michigan after you talk about some of these guys here on screen and anybody else you've got picked out.
Yeah, the first thing that stands out to me is the QBR. It is starkly different.
Yes.
You know, 72.7 QBR. And we knew this coming in. Gio Lopez is one of my favorite players in the conference. 18 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. Now, I think that's a little bit skewed because I don't think that accounts for his rushing touchdowns, correct?
Correct. It does not take into account his
I think he's got total like 25 or 28 total touchdowns. I can't remember exactly. But
you're right there because he's got 7 rushing touchdowns to add to that. Yeah.
Okay. So 25 total touchdowns is what he has, and 5 interceptions. I mean, that's outstanding. And another thing that stands out is Jaden Nixon. His per carry average is phenomenal. 6.6 yards a carry. I mean, that's essentially a first down every 2 times he touched the ball.
Yeah.
So that's going to be tough. And, you know, South Alabama doesn't do that great. We talked about their points allowed to, 25 points per game. They don't do that great against the run, right? So if they stand a chance at all, it will be rushing the football. It certainly isn't throwing the football. 17 total passing touch. I mean, 49.3 as a QBR is deplorable. That's awful. But if they have any chance at all of winning this football game, it's going to be running the ball, clock control. But to me, I think I said it a little bit earlier, if Gio Lopez and that offense is on their game, they're going to score 40. And there's nothing that anybody can do about that.
Yeah, and I think I was surprised you didn't mention his name. I know you've seen it, and I know you're aware of him, but Jamal Pritchett right there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
127 yards, 9 touchdowns, an average of 12.4. And there were some games where he was kind of held in check a little bit more, but when he's not, I mean, I think he had at least –
That's what I mean, though. That we got a 1,000-yard receiver, almost 1,000-yard rusher, 5.2 yards per carry. I mean, this offense, when it is clicking, you won't stop it. You just won't stop it.
I totally agree. I want to say I thought Pritchett had no. I thought he had a 200-yard game. He had 170, which is ridiculous. Okay, he was right there. On the first game against North Texas, he had 197. Yeah,
so he had a 200-yard game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I just thought he technically had a 200-plus yard game.
No, I know what you mean. Yeah, I mean, that's a heck of a day, man. I mean, when you're talking 91 receptions, 1,127 yards. Those are NFL numbers, right? Like that is what. And again, I'm not comparing him at all. But what's the receiver out of Minnesota? LSU, not Jamar Chase, the other one. I'm looking right at him. But anyway, those are video game numbers.
Yeah. I'll tell you what. I saw Patricia in again media days. Not like a huge intimidating guy, but lightning quick, man. That just you can look at him and tell he was fast, just standing there, right? Like this guy is quick. Like just you could just tell his quick twitch muscle movement is probably the best on a zine type of thing. So it's just fun to watch him play. And I don't know if he was. Let me see if he was returning kicks at all. I don't think that he might have done some returns. I don't have that part up right now, but he may have returned some kicks because he could be elusive, a la Dexter Jackson type maneuvers with the ball in open space to take further advantage. But we'll have to see, if that kind of thing is happening in this bowl game. David Asbury saying Wolf used to play at ODU, lost to South Alabama in 2022, only Sunbelt West team to beat ODU. So there's a little trivia for you too. I didn't know he was at ODU. I didn't know the history in that specific game against that team. So that's a good one right there. That is also on South Alabama's tribe there. Oh, number 18, Jefferson.
Yeah, that's who it is. Justin Jefferson.
There you go. So, yes, Hayden Wolf over there doesn't take care of the ball too bad. I mean, if you look at the quarterback things, you're looking at 17 touchdowns to Gio's 18 and 7 receptions to Gio's 5. But there was some other question marks somewhere because he's got a QBR of 49.3, which is about 30. I don't know
how it's that much of a difference. I think total QBR, though, is taking into account what Gio Lopez does with his legs.
Yeah, I'm thinking you're right. That's got to be the play there because Hayden. Let's see what his rushing statistics are.
I can tell you right now, that's not a lot.
Oh man! All right, so he's only rushed for 35 attempts. He's gone for negative 112 yards.
That'll do it. That's that 49.3 QBR. That will do it every time.
And he obviously had some positive yards, so that's crazy to think he's still in the negative. His longest rush, though, was only 5 yards. So he is not a threat whatsoever to run on this South Alabama Jaguars defense, which we know is what, could be a factor in this one. As you said, Jaden Nixon, he transferred in from Oklahoma State. So if that name is familiar, he does come from a power program. Makes sense about why he's been so successful. Again, that 6.6 yards per average is kind of crazy there. Especially in the MAC, was really impressive to be running the ball that successfully. Kenneth Womack. All right, so they had an interesting aspect with the wide receivers. He is kind of the first listed wide receiver because of his yardage, but he only has 1 touchdown, so he's struggling in that sense of the word. Blake Bozma is a tight end who has 6 receiving touchdowns. Guess what the problem is? Guess what the problem is in his case, TJ?
He's probably got 10 receptions and they're all in the red zone.
No, he has 37 receptions and 403 yards, so he's not far behind on the yardage. He's hit the transfer portal. So he's not going to be able to help them in this game. But they do have another wide receiver, Anthony Sambuki. Guess what? He's in the transfer portal too.
Of course he is. Because why wouldn't he be?
I'm telling you,
along with 13 other kids since Sunday.
It's absolutely ridiculous looking at these kids in MAC. Okay, so let's just we'll get to it later too. The transfer portal for South Alabama right now includes 3 players. The transfer portal for JMU, who's the next matchup up, includes 4 players. The transfer portal for Western Kentucky and Western Michigan is a list longer than I could even want to name right now. I mean, you would be sitting here for 5 minutes as I read off all these names. It's ridiculous. So, in a good way, that tells me the Sun Belt is where kids want to play and want to stay. And for whatever reason, the opposite seems to be true in the MAC. So I don't really know what's going on, but they have tons and tons of players in the transfer portal already. So you know what? I might have been wrong, though. I may have been wrong. Mortimer was the wide receiver who's in the transfer portal. So Sambuki might still be there for the game. Maybe he'll enter before the Saturday, so we'll have to see.
Who knows? The rest of the team's going, so why not?
Yeah, they've got interior linemen gone, other defensive players out of here. But watch out for Voisin on the back end. 5 interceptions for the Jags so far this year. So if Western Michigan does put the ball into the air like they like to do with Wolf, because we know he doesn't like to run, that could be a factor for them. Tate Hollick is a safety over on the Broncos side of things. He has 4 interceptions. So they have a ball hawk on both sides of the defense. But what I would say is they'll probably avoid both of those guys for the most part and go towards the weaker options in those secondaries if they want to take advantage of that. Brent is saying, big fan of Pritchett. He has a great story of walking on after transferring from Tuskegee. I did not know about that. Hopefully he gets a Senior Bowl invite despite his size. Yeah, let's see what Pritchett height-wise is, because he's not a tall guy. Let me see. He is 5'8", 175.
Okay.
DJ, what was your playing stats, like height and weight?
I was listed at 5'9", but I was not 5'9". I was 5'8", 192 pounds.
Okay. So similar size there.
Yeah. I was about 20 pounds thicker, but similar size. He's also probably a lot faster than me. I ran a 4.5.
Interesting. We'll see what he runs, hopefully. I don't know.
I was much quicker than I was fast.
Gotcha. Those first couple steps there. So, yeah, he is a senior, so that would make sense. Sometimes those guys that get Senior Bowl invites are actually juniors, but, the senior in front of them decline so that, the other guy gets to take a shot.
Or they're declaring for the draft and they get that invite.
Yeah, it's also true. And also, he'll be playing in his home stadium, so there's that too. Mm-hmm. Not a bad thing at all. So I guess with everything that we've just talked about there, I feel even more comfortable than the 7.5 point spread they've given out. So
yeah, I was going to say, like I said, they're going to hang 40 on them if they're right.
Yeah, yeah. Also, I mean, this is a long travel for Western Michigan. Again, probably less of a factor in bowl season than regular season because there's more time to kind of gently get down there instead of trying to rush to get everything, prepared for with a 1 week's time as they typically have to do throughout the season. But yeah, I think this one is one I feel comfortable taking the Jags of South Alabama in. Okay, so the next game is not until Wednesday, but again, it will start before we go live on the air. So we're going to talk about it tonight. That has JMU Dukes 8-4 on the season going up against the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers, who ended their season 8-5. Obviously, that extra game because they were in the Conference USA championship game against Jacksonville State. Let's see. The last 5 for James Madison. This is exactly the same for the last matchup. JMU comes in 3-2 in their last 5. Western Kentucky comes in 2-3, which is the exact same matchup for USA and Western Michigan. We know JMU scored 70 on UNC. That's their highest point total of the season. Western Kentucky did score 49 points at one point. They were also shut out, so you do have to note that. And this is an interesting aspect to the point totals here, and this is sometimes why I find these things interesting. The low point total for JMU was just 13 points. Guess what? They still won that game.
Of course they did.
Yeah, they beat Gardner-Webb 13-6. So there you go. That's kind of crazy. They did not have any common opponents, so no real way to translate what we may see on the field. JMU averages 33.8 points per game. They allowed 20.8 on average. Holds pretty well. Western Kentucky, for as high-powered as their offense is with that spread offense and throwing the ball all over the place, they only averaged 25.5 points per game, and they allowed 24.5 points a game. So, again, not a very large margin of victory when you average it out. So, interesting look there. JMU favored by 8. I think that's kind of obvious now after we've heard all of that. Total over-under of 52.5. And this one is the Boca Raton Bowl. Again, Wednesday, 5:30 ESPN, 4:30 Central Time. So right when you get off work, you'll be able to turn on the TV and watch a little football immediately. Never a bad thing.
Right when I go downstairs.
There you go. Yeah. You don't have to drive home. You lucky guy.
Or, I mean, Emma, and sometimes it's nice to get outside and see some people. Other times, I don't want to see people. So
yeah. You know what? It's really nice. I'm wearing the raincoat kind of thing here today because it's been so wet and rainy here. So those days, you have a great advantage to not have to be involved in the BS that you have to go through with how people drive in the rain. Either
that is
crazy
true.
as hell or slow like grandma's. It's either one or the other. There's not a whole lot of in between.
Although the downside of that is you're home and you could go right downstairs to your bed and bring your laptop and then you get sleepy.
That's a good point. Yeah, you have to do stuff to like just stay in the moment and keep at work. Like you stand up every once in a while or something.
Every now and again, but my job is busy. And you know that we talked about it, new department and that kind of thing. But for me, I just, I break the monotony. Every now and again, I'll watch 20 minutes of a Sports Center show or something. And, then I'll get back to it or I'll work out. I got you can't see it, but my workout set up over here. I got my bike and my weights and my, I guess plastic floor, Mondo floor, whatever it is.
Oh yeah. Like yeah.
So, workout in here. So yeah, I break my day up every now and again.
Nice. Got to, man. I have a standing desk that I'm at now. Obviously most people can probably tell that from watching, but I also have one at work and I stand almost all day. I'll just sit real occasionally because it helps me just stay focused. So
yeah,
I'm like Pat McAfee, just stands at his damn desk all day. So
yeah,
I like it though. I don't know. I prefer to stand up. I don't know what it is about it. I think I work better. So
yeah, whatever works.
Yeah. You got to do something to just stay in it there. All right. This is an interesting aspect. We'll talk about this. First of all, I guess just talk to us about Alonzo Barnett III, what you thought about him throughout this season, what you think he's going to be capable of. The three main guys I'd say for JMU are not transferring out, which is good. They do have Chris Lofton on the wide receiver aspect and Max Moss, both going to transfer. They have a D lineman and an interior offensive lineman, Jesse Rammel. And again, Western Kentucky has a laundry list of those guys. But talk about JMU, the Dukes, a little bit before we get rolling into the Hilltoppers here.
Yeah, Alonzo Barnett is somebody we've all kind of lauded this entire year. I mean, he's been great, 26 touchdowns to just 4 interceptions. The 45.5 QBR is confusing me unless they're talking about, lack of rushing attempts, which would make sense because it's not what he's there to do. But that said, he overall has been great all season. So, obviously high expectations for him in this game. I expect kind of a lot more the same, right? 26 touchdowns, 4 interceptions is an insane TD to interception ratio. And then, you've got George Pettaway, who 148 carries, 880 yards, 5.90. For me, it's always the average yards per carry that I'm looking at, right? Because how many times can I give you the ball and get a first down? And that, to me, is what tells the difference in the story with a lot of these teams if, they can control the clock and specifically, 2 to 3 minutes before halftime and at the end of games, if you've already got a lead. Can you sit on the ball? Or if you don't have a lead and you need to control the clock to go down and score last. That, to me, is where I find specifically the running game to be most advantageous. So if I can get 6 yards of carry out of you, essentially a first down every 2 times you touch the ball, then yeah, I'm going to control the clock and I'm going to win this football game. Not big in the passing game. I will say 17.8 yards per average catch is awesome. But, and 551 yards isn't nothing to sneeze at. They spread the ball around a lot. JMU does. And they're not a huge passing team. Overall, I obviously am going to pick JMU, especially with all the transfer guys that WKU have. But JMU is, even if they didn't, I think would be the better overall football team.
One thing to mention here, the reason I put Omarion Dulles in there is because he has the 6 touchdowns. Technically, Ymir Knight actually has the most receptions on that team with 49, 567 yards. He only has 4 touchdowns and not as big of an average. So that's why I lean Dulles in, but that's kind of a dual threat there at the wide receiver position. They can go to either one of those guys and be very, very dangerous. Cam Ross is up there kind of close to them as well, 3 touchdowns on the year. tight end Taylor Thompson has been phenomenal for them. He has 5 touchdowns and 427 yards. So again, Barnett has the necessary weapons to make this offense work. I'm shocked at the QBR. I didn't really, even when I put that up together, I didn't realize how bad it was. When I saw 95th, I was like, yeah, I mean, there's just a bunch of quarterbacks, so it doesn't shock me that, he's not way up top. But I didn't really realize, I didn't look closely enough, I guess, at the 45.5, which you said maybe the average rush, attempts are low. He rushed for 135 times, 442 yards.
So so that's
7
wrong.
touchdowns. But
that's wrong.
But his average is just 3.3. So maybe
but that's not fact. That shouldn't be factored in. I mean, you're talking about 32, 33 total touchdowns.
Yeah.
So why is that? Yeah, that's not accurate.
Yeah, I don't understand that at all. I hate the QBR metric to some extent. I do realize that it can help sometimes understand something, but this is one I don't understand. How are you 95th in the country, 45.5 with what we just said? I don't get it. Got to see Petaway in person at the UNC game and at the App State game. Really impressed with his game overall. I will say, coming from UNC where he came from as a transfer, I guess I was kind of thinking about Omarion Hampton. He's not the same size, of course, but he's even smaller than I thought he would be as a star running back kind of is concerned. But he gets it done, right? I mean, just really impressive vision and maneuverability on the field's absolutely fantastic compared to what they could have seen otherwise. Okay, so let's go to the other side of the ball. Western Kentucky, as you can see, where I would typically have a quarterback here, I've got Dalvin Smith, and his statistics are showing you receptions, his yards, and his touchdowns for the season. Well, the top 2 quarterbacks, Caden Veltkamp and TJ Finley, and we know TJ Finley from last year at Texas State who had transferred up here to the Hilltoppers, they have both already declared for the transfer portal. Those were the only 2 quarterbacks in season to take a snap. Dalvin Smith here is a wide receiver, and he did put up 330 yards. Had 29 catches and 3 touchdowns. But he also threw 3 passes. He threw 4 passes, completed 3, 107 yards, 2 touchdowns, and his rating was 464.7. So put him in the game.
Let him play ball.
Part of it's a joke. I don't know if they'd actually put Dalvin Smith in there as a full-time quarterback in this game. But for the quarterbacks who touched the field this year, they're both off the roster. So they may have a third-string guy who just didn't see the field, and they are going to allow him to play this game. But I mean, he could be in the portal too, for all I know. I don't know enough about the Hilltoppers quarterback situation at this moment to put anybody else but Dalvin Smith in that kind of position at this point. So there's a huge knock against the Hilltoppers right off the bat immediately. Even if they have a quarterback that's third string comes in, about the only advantage I'd say, and I don't know how much of one this is, TJ. There's not going to be any film on him besides maybe.
There's a reason why there's not film on you, because you can't play.
It's going to be an interesting quarterback situation. Elijah Young here, 190 carries, 846 yards, just 3 touchdowns on the ground though, and a 4.5 yard per carry average. Then you got Keyshawn Johnson, 66 receptions. So obviously Western Kentucky is still slinging that ball around with how many times he caught the ball, which is over twice that of Dolison over here on the other side. He went for 855 yards, 7 touchdowns, but just a 13.0 yards per catch average. So you can see the difference there, right? Dolison doesn't get the ball as often, but he makes things happen a little bit better. Sure. I don't know how threatening you could think that Western Kentucky is going to be in this game, right? Like, seeing all this, they don't run the ball successfully very much. So how are you going to control the clock in face of this game if you're going to be leaning on a quarterback, no matter who it is, who's not going to be experienced coming into it, right?
Yeah, I mean, you don't – there's no scenario by which Western Kentucky is explosive in this football game. I mean, it's almost impossible to say that they will be. unless their third string quarterback is just somehow miraculously Cardale Jones. And that was crazy because they had JT Barrett, and that was back when Ohio State had JT Barrett and what was the other guy? 5. Or no, 1. Oh God, I cannot remember, but they had him who moved to receiver his senior year, so JT Barrett could start at quarterback, and then JT Barrett went down, and Cardale Jones comes in and only throws like 4 touchdown passes in a championship. It's like, what is going on? What is happening at Ohio State? So, unless he's him, which I very much doubt. It's not looking good, man. Like, I mean, obviously the heavy money should be on JMU, and quite honestly, 8 points isn't enough based on what we're talking about now.
No, I don't think 8 points is enough at all. And the only reason I think maybe, possibly, again, this game is a little further out than the one we previewed before. That's a Saturday game. This is a next Wednesday game. So it's a week from today. Maybe they're putting a little bit of play in the fact that like some of these guys from JMU are going to still enter the portal. Maybe, but I don't think you really do that. I mean, if you're Vegas, I guess you got plenty of time to make a change on the line. But
sure.
I would say jump in early, take the Jags, shake the Dukes, and really feel pretty good about it. I don't know if I'd quite parlay it because of how far apart these two games are. But I would feel comfortable taking these first 2 Sunbelt teams to win their matchups to start bowl season off the right way. For the 8 teams and 2 wins right away, I think that'd be a pretty good start, right?
I'd say so.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if I see anybody who really stands out defensively for the Hilltoppers right now. I mean, I just don't see anything that's shocking me.
I mean, they haven't stopped anybody really all year. I think their average giving up, I think 24, 28 points a game is what they're giving up. I mean, that's not great for sure.
Yeah. Their average exactly, 24.5. You nailed it right there. Force fumbles. I mean, they don't seem to force a ton of them. They've got a few interceptions, but their guy with the most only has 2. There's a couple of them that have 2. Darius Thomas, the linebacker, maybe is one guy to really keep an eye out. And Devontae Matthews, a defensive back who's got 90 total tackles on the year. But I'm telling you what, this Duke's defense, man, you've got
some guys. They got some guys.
Jacob Thomas is safety position, 3 interceptions, a bunch of passes defended. He's got a half a sack even from probably a safety blitz there. Jacob Dobbs, I'm not sure if he's going to be back in full health just yet, but I think I heard he possibly could go for the bowl game. They are 1-2 in total tackles on the season there. And, they've just got that guy I love on the other side of the ball, Eric O'Neal, with 11.5 sacks on the year. So they definitely have some disruptive players on the defensive side for the Dukes that also have me favor them heavily over this Western Kentucky offense. But yeah, I don't have any problem taking our Sunbelt brethren to take both of these victories rather comfortably. Again, the off the field aspect of so many guys in the portal for both the MAC schools that they're going up against too, it's got to play into the mental aspect somewhat, right? Like you just don't have your full team that you played with all year.
Yeah, you've got those guys kind of looking at them sideways too, right? Like, really, bro? Like you're going to leave us in literally our biggest moment of the year. You're going to leave us behind. So there's a lot to be said for the transfer portal. There's a lot to be said for guys who opt out in terms of playing, who think they have a better shot or want to stay healthy for the draft. And I get it if you're first round draft pick. I understand, and you're playing in a who gives a crap bowl, right? Like I get that, but you're not going to get a better bowl if you're Western Kentucky.
Let me ask you a question. It's interesting one that I've just recently really thought about. Is it, I would think it is, maybe it's very obvious. Is it a bigger deal for you to, as a player, play in a conference championship game or a bowl game? I mean, I guess that's probably too obvious, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
They're both big deals, right? I mean, they're both big deals because they both matter, right? Conference championship matters. You're going to get a ring for that for sure. But bowl game matters because you're going to get a ring for that. And also what it does for the school and for your record. And bowl season is when everybody's watching, right? Bowls are every day. When bowl season starts, they're like, I mean, there's a Case in point, JMU plays on Wednesday at 5:30. People are going to watch because people are going to be home. People are going to be, just randomly turning on their television when they get home from work. And it's like, oh, there's a football game on. Let's check this out. Scouts are going to be watching it. That's why, to me, it doesn't make sense to not play it or to not play in it. Again, unless you're a first-round pick out of Florida State who didn't have a really good season, or the team didn't have a good season, but you had a great season, and you're playing in the Camilla Bowl, right? I get that. I still would play in it if it was me, but I get why you wouldn't.
Yeah, I hope that these guys that aren't playing don't get the swag bags, man, because that's something.
Oh, no,
you don't.
I'm sure you don't. Yeah, I'm sure you don't. I wouldn't give them one.
Yeah, that's true. I don't think they do, because I think the whole thing is you have to go, and a lot of the Bulls give you options, I guess, right? Have you seen those videos where you go around as the player and you tag like the thing from this area that you want, and then that area? Like, it looks like you get to pick and choose at most bowl games so that they don't have to give you all the stuff. I don't know.
Like, you can pick what you want for each thing. Yeah. Now, when we were playing in the playoffs, you just got whatever the hell they gave you. You go to the championship game and you get a championship bag and you get whatever's in that bag. This was also in 2005, 6, and 7.
Did you get some cool stuff back then?
Yeah. I got some App State some footballs. I've got some Chattanooga swag, right? So from the city or town of Chattanooga, because we frequented there a lot. So I mean, it was cool. A nice little tote bag, which I can't find anymore. It's like a laptop carryover bag that had a long strap on it.
Huh.
And I don't know what I did with it. I lost it when we moved. Had a big Appalachian sticker on it. And then at the bottom right, it had what is it? Championship, Division I AA championship logo on the bottom right of it. Yeah. So it was cool. Nice. I just don't know what I did with it.
I had one of those little from the championship game in 2007. The one I went to had a little cinch up bag that they were giving in as you walked in. That was pretty cool. I used that thing so much when we started doing this stuff to take the equipment places and everything that it is literally like falling apart.
Yeah.
But I won't give it up because of what it means and that night and how it ended. Sure. I won't get rid of it. I don't care. I'll put it up in a box or something, but I'm never going to get rid of it. It can flake away like a Thanos snap of the fingers or something, but it'll have to do that on its own because I ain't getting rid of it on purpose. That pretty much does it, really. I mean, we previewed both games. Again, we were just going to take it slower in the bowl game previews to do a better job of that. I don't know. Did you like that setup? You like how that went?
Yeah, it was good. I enjoyed it. Short show. Everybody who was fans of these teams paid attention, and obviously, and we all want to see the Sun Belt do well, right? Like, so we're all going to tune in, we're all going to watch, and I think that gives us, you and I, better time to prepare and be more diligent in how we discuss the games. I mean, pointing out key players and those kinds of things, guys in the transfer portal, and it's even now more important than we do this than what we did last year, because last year kind of caught us off guard when we did them all at once, and then there were guys that hit the transfer portal after we had sort of talked about it. So this format gives us a lot of hope you guys like it, because it gives us a lot of leeway to kind of talk through what these transfer guys are doing and what these guys who are declaring or opting out are also doing. So I enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too. I like this setup. I think we'll continue it. If you got any thoughts or opinions on what you'd like to see or hear more of, certainly let us know. If there's other interesting tidbits of craziness, like two teams losing to conference opponents from the other side by the exact same score, hey, we'll try and find those for you guys and let you know that stuff going in. Because that was one of the crazier things I found between all these teams so far. I'm just like, that is weird. But yeah, anyway, that'll wrap it up for the first two bowl games. Again, we've got 6 more after this. We will keep you guys all up to speed. And until then, we will see you next week, just after the JMU bowl game.
Absolutely. Guys, take care.